The joint investigation team asks the unresponsive president once again to appear for questioning over the martial law incident, this time by December 25th. The government and ruling People Power Party have agreed to organize a comprehensive response system using private networks, having held a meeting on Friday to prepare for the incoming Trump administration in the U.S. amid a de facto leadership absence in Korea. And for our arts and culture segment this week, we take a look at how Korean culture is in the spotlight in Sweden, the very place where celebrations recently took place for this year's Nobel laureates. It's December 20th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. Yet another summons has been served to the president, calling for his presence on Christmas Day for questioning. Bae Yoon-ji has our top story.
The joint investigation team that's looking into President Yoon Suk-yeol over his declaration of martial law has sent another summons to the president over insurrection charges and abuse of power. The team, which is a collaboration between the police, the defense ministry, and the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials, has ordered him to appear for questioning at the CIO's office at 10 a.m. on December 25th. But it remains to be seen whether President Yoon will appear, as this is the second time the joint investigation team has sent a summons order, after the president did not show up for questioning on December 18th. The CIO is reportedly considering requesting an arrest warrant for Yoon if the president does not comply with the summons for Christmas Day. In a parliamentary session earlier this week, its chief prosecutor had hinted at the possibility of carrying out a compulsory investigation by not denying the fact that his office can arrest the president if the conditions are met.
We are in a situation where a legitimate summons order is being refused. We've been closely monitoring this situation.
Separately, the special police team investigating the brief imposition of martial law said it has conducted questioning on acting President Han Duck-soo. Han is one of the 9 people the police said they've questioned over their attendance at a cabinet meeting that President Yoon held just before he declared martial law on December 3rd. This is the first time Han has been known to have been questioned by the police as a suspect in the probe. Meanwhile, the CIO has also requested an arrest warrant for the country's former military intelligence commander, Moon Sang-ho. Moon is suspected of discussing martial law operations with 3 other military officials 2 days before the martial law was declared. He's also suspected of sending troops to the National Election Commission's office on the night martial law was imposed. Bae Yoon-ji, Arirang News.
As President Yoon refuses to accept legal documents sent by the Constitutional Court for about a week, the court is looking for its own measures. Lee Soo-jin reports.
Repeated efforts by South Korea's Constitutional Court to send President Yoon legal documents have proven unsuccessful. With the president continuously not accepting any of the documents, concerns are being raised about potential delays in the impeachment trial process.
Just like yesterday, the documents sent to the president remain undelivered. The justices discussed and shared the progress and the situation at yesterday's meeting.
Yoon is currently facing a trial at the Constitutional Court that will determine whether his short-lived imposition of martial law warrants being removed from office. Starting on Monday, the documents were attempted to be delivered in person, by mail, and electronically numerous times, but all attempts have proven futile. The presidential office cited the president's absence as a reason for not accepting them, while security at his private residence also refused to receive them.
But if the documents are not delivered, delays in the legal process is possible. To prevent this, the court is reportedly considering deemed delivery, a procedure that allows the trial to proceed as if the documents were delivered.
The Constitutional Court has said that it will decide next Monday whether to regard the documents as having been delivered. If the documents are considered by the court as having been delivered to President Yoon, he will be required to respond in 7 days. With the preliminary hearing date set for December 27th, if the documents are not delivered on time, his legal representatives at the hearing may request more time to review the documents, delaying the trial procedure. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
A high-level consultation between government officials and ruling party lawmakers took place earlier today, with economy, security, and diplomacy on the agenda. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
The government and ruling People Power Party have pledged joint efforts to roll out aid for ailing businesses and prepare for the incoming Donald Trump administration and its possible engagement with North Korea. This came on Friday during a high-level consultation meeting between various cabinet ministers and ruling party officials. Held at the residence of acting President and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, the talks took place for the first time in 3 months, signifying the greater need for government party cooperation following President Yoon Suk-yeol's suspension from duties. As Yoon faces impeachment over imposing martial law, the two sides stressed the need to recover South Korea's credibility abroad, pledging to strengthen communication with major partner countries and stably manage foreign relations. Based on South Korea-US and South Korea-US-Japan cooperation, the government and ruling party agreed to establish a firm response posture to North Korea's threats and provocations. They will also prepare strategies and roadmaps to address North Korea's nuclear developments and preemptively respond to the possibility of US-North Korea dialogue, given incoming US President Donald Trump's 2 summits with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. With Trump to reclaim the Oval Office in January, the government and ruling party agreed to establish a comprehensive response system covering political and economic realms, and utilizing the country's businesses and public-private networks to effectively engage with Washington. Faced with lingering trade and economic uncertainty, as well as increased volatility in financial markets, the government and PPP agreed to release the 2025 economic policy direction within the year, reflecting the need for proactive cooperation in maintaining economic credibility, adapting to trade changes, strengthening industrial competitiveness, and stabilizing livelihoods. Aiming to execute the budget from the first day of next year, the government plans to concentrate spending on supporting small firms and socially disadvantaged groups and alleviating the financial burdens suffered by ordinary citizens. One measure includes launching recovery projects and loans for small firms beginning January, with the budget for loans to expand by 60 billion won, or $41 million to roughly $2.6 billion. With various domestic and security challenges ahead, acting party leader and floor leader Kwon Sung-dong requested Han to urgently appoint ministers for the Ministry of National Defense and the Ministry of Interior and Safety to maintain security and public safety, particularly towards the year-end when many gatherings take place. In a briefing later on Friday, Kwon for the first time expressed support for a consultative body between the government and both the ruling and opposition parties, after days of resisting the idea backed by the opposition, the Assembly Speaker and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo. He said the PPP agreed to participate in the dialogue, focusing on people's livelihoods and national security, and that discussions concerning the members of the group are currently underway. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Opposition lawmakers have voiced their discontent over the recent veto of disputed bills by the acting president, while vowing for the impeachment of President Yoon. The ruling party, for its part, seeks to restructure its leadership framework amid the resignation of its leader. Our National Assembly correspondent Lee Si-hoo has more.
A special team made up of opposition lawmakers committed to facilitating the impeachment of President Yoon held its first meeting with legal representatives on Friday and vowed to complete the impeachment trial until its end. The team, led by the main opposition Democratic Party, met with the 17 legal experts and lawyers who will act on the National Assembly's behalf in the impending trial. And nearing the end of Han Duck-soo's first week as acting president, the DP expressed strong regret for Han's use of his veto power the day before, urging him to quickly instigate a prosecution investigation of President Yoon and First Lady Kim as approved in bills by the National Assembly.
I hope that acting President Han will no longer betray the people. Please quickly promulgate the Special Prosecutor Acts in accordance with public opinion.
The DP further pressured the ruling People Power Party to support the Assembly's follow-up procedures for Yoon's impeachment, including the pending nomination of 3 judges to fill vacancies at the Constitutional Court, which will make the final decision on the president. This, while the ruling party strives to reorganize its leadership structure, following the mass resignation of former chairman Han Dong-un and members of the PPP Supreme Council. The party held internal meetings throughout Friday to discuss potential candidates in the pipeline to head its emergency leadership, alongside acting chairman and floor leader Kwon Sung-dong. Following the discussions, PPP lawmaker Kim Seok-gi told reporters that it would be right to have two leaders to head the party at a time like this, as it faces many tasks ahead. Among those being mentioned as potential candidates are some of the senior members of the party, the 5 times elected Kim Gi-hyun, Kwon Young-se, and Na Kyung-won. Acting Chairman Kwon will receive internal nominations for the next few days before announcing the leader by early next week. 이시후, Arirang News.
As the financial markets and currency grapple with the after effects of the Fed's latest interest rate decision and domestic political turmoil, the authorities are pulling the stops in an attempt to stabilize the economy. Our Moon Hye-ryun has the details.
Following the U.S. Federal Reserve's interest rate cut of 25 basis points and a hawkish turn of projections for next year, the South Korean won plummeted against the dollar to lows unseen in more than 15 years. On Friday, the South Korean won to U.S. dollar exchange rate closed at 1,451.41 per dollar, closing past the 1,451 per dollar mark for 2 days straight. The country's benchmark Kospi also fell sharply, dropping past the 2,400 mark throughout the trading session, before closing at just over 2,404. The tech-heavy Kosdaq also shed more than 2% from its previous close. In light of these developments, Seoul is responding with a series of measures to stabilize the foreign exchange market. On Thursday, immediately following the Fed's announcement, the Finance Ministry and the Bank of Korea said it plans to extend the foreign exchange swap deal with the National Pension Service to the end of 2025, as well as increasing the limit from $500 billion to $650 billion. A foreign exchange swap can help to stabilize the volatile foreign exchange market as it absorbs the National Pension Service's demand for US dollars when making overseas investments, and therefore lowers pressure on the Korean won. It also ensures that the government's foreign exchange reserves are not permanently impacted, since funds are returned at the end of the swap. The government also announced on Friday that it would ease regulations on foreign currency liquidity for banks and restrictions on foreign currency loans for domestic use. When restrictions on foreign currency loans are eased, businesses, particularly export-orientated businesses, are more likely to take out loans in foreign currency such as the US dollar. This means that there is a higher supply of the foreign currency in the domestic market, which in turn counteracts the pressure driving the won's value down to stabilize the exchange rate. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News.
Elsewhere, in his annual press conference this year, Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke at length about various issues, but there was no mention of North Korea regarding the regime's growing involvement in the war in Ukraine. Meantime, Ukraine's leader has also addressed the media, slamming Putin. Lee Eun-jin covers their remarks.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday held his annual end-of-year press conference, which lasted for 4.5 hours. During the TV marathon, the Russian leader emphasized that Russia is getting closer to achieving its primary goals in Ukraine, while also noting that the country's economy is stable. A BBC journalist reminded Putin of how his predecessor told him to take care of the country when he handed over power, then challenged Putin on whether he has taken care of Russia over his 25 years in power. The Russian leader said not only has he protected his country, but has pulled it back from the edge of the abyss.
Yes, I believe that I have not just protected it. I believe that we have pulled back from the edge of the abyss. Because everything that happened to Russia before and after that moment led us to a complete total loss of our sovereignty. And without sovereignty, Russia cannot exist as a separate independent country.
Putin covered a wide range of topics in front of the journalists, including Syria, where he insisted that Russia was not defeated, adding that Moscow was holding talks with the new Syrian ruling government over Russia's military bases in the country. But there was no mention of North Korea. Considering the growing military alliance between Moscow and Pyongyang, it was largely speculated that Putin would have made some comment on the regime. Despite growing evidence and reports of North Korea's involvement in Russia's war efforts, both Moscow and Pyongyang have been silent on the matter. Meanwhile, leaders of the 27 European Union countries adopted a joint statement on Thursday, condemning North Korea for aiding Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. The EU leaders said North Korea's deployment of troops represented an international escalation and called on countries to stop direct and indirect support for Russia. During a press conference after the EU summit, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called on U.S. President-elect Donald Trump to stand on Ukraine's side, calling him a strong man.
I think that President Trump is a strong man, and I want very much to have him on our side. For me, it's very important. I want to discuss with him more details about this war. I think
Also during the press conference, Zelensky took the opportunity to slam Putin, calling him both dangerous and crazy, adding that he loves to kill. 이은진, Arirang News.
Time now for our weekly arts and culture segment. Joining us in the studio is our culture correspondent, Song Yujin. Welcome back, Yujin.
Happy to be back, Jongmin.
What do you have for us today?
Well, Jongmin, as you know, Sweden has been in the spotlight recently, hosting this year's Nobel Prize Award ceremony that was, of course, attended by Korean author Han Kang, this year's Nobel Prize Literature laureate. But the connection between Sweden and Korea goes far beyond the Nobel stage, as Sweden is emerging as a new hub for Korean culture in Northern Europe. So during my time in Sweden, I had the chance to visit two key institutions in charge of promoting K-culture in the region. The birthplace of ABBA, Spotify, and IKEA, Sweden has long been celebrated for its creativity and cultural innovation. This month, Stockholm became home to the Korea Creative Content Agency Sweden, the agency's first branch in Northern Europe.
We've seen growing interest in K-pop among teens and young adults, with Swedish musicians contributing as songwriters and producers. Given Sweden's global reputation in gaming, with titles like Minecraft and Candy Crush Saga, we plan to focus on collaboration in music and gaming.
Take Stockholm's K-pop non-stop dance academy, for example. Starting with just 2 classes and 20 students in 2015, it has grown to over 15 classes with a community of 200 students.
Before, it was more of a niche thing like K-pop, so it wasn't very widely accepted. It's not only singing and dancing, but it's also like the performance. And I also liked how you get to learn to know the idols more as a person and not just as an artist.
But it's only recent years that this interest has started to flourish. So after opening Northern Europe's first Korean cultural center last year, Sweden has now welcomed KOKA Sweden, the first Korea Creative Content Agency's branch in the region.
Northern Europe historically had limited access to Korean culture due to its geographic distance and lack of dedicated cultural institutions. But with the rise of digital platforms, people here have begun to explore K-pop, Korean dramas, and more.
The opening of the Korean Cultural Center Sweden last year was a turning point. Since its launch in May 2023, the center has hosted a range of events, from K-pop festivals to Korean food seminars, establishing itself as a hub for promoting Korean culture not just in Sweden, but across Northern Europe. Director Lee Kyung-jae says there's a reason why Korean culture is spreading so quickly in Sweden.
Swedes are known for immersing themselves in their interests. For example, instead of simply enjoying kimchi at restaurants, many choose to learn how to make it themselves. Our center is serving as a space where they can share their passions and discover new aspects of Korean culture that are hard to access online.
This passion was evident among the students taking Korean language classes at the center.
You can tell this from the amount of Korean restaurants opening, the amount of Korean foods available in different Asian food stores. There is a bigger interest in Korean music. You can see Korean artists coming to play here.
People are getting more and more interested, and also having this culture institute opening up here as well. I think it's interesting to know more about Korea, because we know a little bit about Korea, but maybe not about a lot of the culture. So it's good to have all the other things that we don't know about Korea, like literature and food.
By bridging cultures, these two institutions are not only strengthening ties between Sweden and Korea, but also laying the foundation for deeper connections between Korea and Northern Europe.
Great stuff.
Thank you.
And the two institutions you mentioned in your report are relatively new. You explained the areas KOKA Sweden will focus on, but what about the Korean Culture Center?
According to Director Lee, who is the director of the Korean Cultural Center Sweden, the center actually conducted a survey and research to really understand what areas of Korean culture that Sweden people are interested in, and also how people in Sweden engage with culture. And based on this data, they selected 4 areas of focus, which are literature, films, and then, of course, food and handicrafts. And starting with literature, it was a natural choice given Sweden's reputation as the home of the Nobel Prize in Literature and beloved author Astrid Lindgren, who is best known for Pippi Longstocking. And film is another priority, as Sweden has a strong movie-going culture, with its currency even featuring famous directors and actors. And of course, Korean food remains a favorite among global fans of K-culture, and Sweden is also known for valuing handcrafted works, as it's the home country of IKEA. So the center plans to design and run programs centered on these areas to really expand the global or the local appeal of Korean culture in the country and also in Northern Europe.
Our culture correspondent, Song Yujin, thanks for the report.
Thank you.
The cold was not too severe today, but ultrafine dust has become a problem. Currently, Seoul is under bad levels of ultrafine dust concentrations, along with parts of the capital area. In addition, smoke from overseas will be added tomorrow, and the air will be dusty in western parts of Gangwon-do province and northern parts of the Gyeongsang-do provinces. With a heavy snow advisory for the mountainous areas of Jeju Island, up to 20 centimeters of heavy snow will fall by Sunday. In addition, heavy snow of up to 3 centimeters per hour is expected in central and eastern parts of Jeollabuk-do province between tomorrow dawn and morning, so please take extra precautions. Tomorrow, Seoul will start off at -1 degree, Gyeongju -2 degrees. Highs will move up to 2 degrees in Seoul, Daegu 6 degrees. The snow will mostly stop by tomorrow afternoon, and the cold weather is expected to make a return on Sunday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.